Hello and welcome to GYDA Talks, and it's absolutely my pleasure today to have as a guest Serena Humphrey from The F Word. So hello Serena.
Hello Robert, very nice to be here today, thank you.
Absolutely great to be here. So without further ado, let's just go straight in. So The F Word, come on, what is The F Word? Tell me what The F Word is.
The F Word, so my company is called The F Word, and we train business owners to understand their finances so that they can achieve financial freedom through their business. And it's called the F Word because it is most people's F word. Finance, most people are quite scared of it in business. It's not a thing that's kind of well understood amongst small business owners. So we're the F Word.
So what's your background? How do you end up running, of all the things you could be doing in the world, how do you end up running the F Word, an organisation which is helping people understand what finance is?
Okay, so I'm a chartered management accountant, and I went through quite a traditional route in terms of qualified with Next and Northern Foods as a chartered management accountant. But it had always been my vision, mission, passion to set up my own business as soon as I got my qualifications. So I did kind of 10, 12 years in corporate land. But what preceded that in the early 90s was I had 3 personal financial disasters that really formed what I was going to do with my life. And the first thing that happened was that my parents, who'd been business owners since I was a baby, always had their own business, very entrepreneurial household I grew up in, and they lost their business and went bankrupt and lost their home in the early 90s recession. And so they were literally homeless and had to start again from scratch with nothing. And in those days they took everything, so they didn't come away from it with a lot. The second thing that happened was I was accounts manager for a very fast growing company. We'd gone from £500,000 to £10 million turnover in 3 years flat. Every issue you can imagine just from those numbers. And I was in charge of a team of 8 people running finance for a £10 million company. I was 22 years old, and all I knew about was cash flow. I didn't know P&L, I didn't know debits, credits, we didn't have any management accounts, and we crashed into receivership in early 93. And it was just the directors got an 8-year disqualification on the back of it because of how badly the business was being run, which is a pretty brutal disqualification. And then I lost my home in that recession as well. So parents homeless, I was homeless, business had gone down, 400 people lost their jobs. I had to make everyone redundant. I had to shut down the factory. I had to shut down our 80 stores all around the country. So it was a very brutal awakening for a 22-year-old.
And it just brutal.
Yeah, and it's just kind of, I'm left going like, okay, well, that must be my fault. I'm head of finance. Clearly it's my fault. It's my problem. So after I beat myself up for a year, I thought, right, I need to go and become an accountant because I need to know what happened. And I need to know how that doesn't happen to anybody else. For those, the reason it's undercapitalised, overtrading, lack of financial control, lack of reporting. We were using reverse premiums to building all the new shopping centres. It was just looking back now, once you understand it, it's like, what the hell? So that became the mission. Like, I have to qualify. I have to learn how small companies should run their finances so that I can go and teach people.
You're making it sound quite scary now, because I mean the whole thing about finance, the reason that agency owners will walk away from finance, finance control, the finance manager, the accountant can do it, is because the numbers are so, it's like a foreign language. So are you saying that you are taking the heebie-jeebies out of it? You're taking
absolutely, and that's why we call it the F word, because it is the thing that people go, oh my God, it's finance, I just don't want to know. So what you've just described there is what we call the abdication. Business owners, probably 90% of business owners, abdicate all things financial because there are these walls of complexity built around it, partly by the accountants, by the language that we learn. We spend years learning a different language, and then we wonder why people don't understand. And you were just telling me an example before about, a business you work with where the financial controllers made it so complex, the owners are scared to go near it. So we are smashing down those walls. We're breaking through the jargon, and we teach business owners on our online membership academy how to understand it. But it's a step further than that, Robert. It's about getting people excited and engaged in why the hell they're doing it. So we get people connected to what is it you want for your life, and your business is the enabler to make that happen for you. So they get that very deep personal connection to, like, I need the numbers to be this because I want this life. I want to achieve this. I want to give my family that. And when you get people connected emotionally with the numbers, it breaks down all those walls. And then they want to see their figures. And then also we train you, like, this is what your accountant should tell you. And if they're not, sack them. Find an accountant who does make it easy. And if they're putting the walls up and if they're just talking you through your zero P&L, then they're not doing their job. So we teach people what great looks like and what they should expect from their accountant. But it's all with this end game of, we all want financial freedom. And our business is the vehicle to give it to us. But most business owners, not only will they not get freedom, they won't even survive. Because as you know, most small companies fail. So it's how, the mission is overcoming, the failure points and getting them to the point where their business will give them that future they want.
So let's just unpick this, because there's a lot going on. So yeah, anyone who's seen me live knows I do this thing, and I say, what are the things you measure to tell you how good your business is? And people straight away come up with turnover, profit, revenue.
Don't care about turnover.
Thank you very much. Okay, the one thing they never come up with in a room of 100 or 1,000 or 2,000, unless of course they've been on one of your programs, or mine, they never come up with cash, which is like just totally bonkers as far as I'm concerned. Because
cash and profit is all I care about. I don't care what your turnover is.
Yeah. Good. I love that. I love that idea. And people always come up with finance being the most important measures of the business. Now, my corollary, and let's just see how you and I get on about this, is that finance, but actually finance is a consequence of marketing and operations. So your financial performance, your profitability, the cash in hand, is a consequence of how good you are at selling your stuff and making the sale, and how good you are at delivering it, and how good you make that happen. So finance is a consequence of your marketing and operations. Now, you need to understand, what the end numbers are. But my thing really is that most agency owners, most business owners, they can't be dealing with the finance because it's kind of too abstract, or it's presented to them as a 5-dimensional graph, or it's always presented in terms of EBITDA, but we're going to use EBITDA because it's more appropriate for the way that we're using Sage version 11.3 and kind of nonsense. And if it's not that, they don't get that. They don't really get marketing in terms of what I want is more customers, but I don't know how to get them, or I want more customers. I wish I could have a foolproof method of getting them. So what they do understand, because they are, like most business owners, technicians turned owners of businesses, they understand how to do the doing and pulling in. So they revert to type, and in the recession we saw, nearly every agency owner, founder, to some degree reverting to type, because it's easier to revert to type. I know what I can do. I can do what I've trained to do in order to make it happen. But that's not running a business. So there's a whole load of complicated stuff going on in that. So are you saying finance first? I guess that's the first thing I'd like to understand. Are you saying that the finance drives everything in the business?
No. So I think my belief is that marketing is the most important thing, because without marketing you haven't got income. Without income you haven't got profit. So within our online training program, there's actually a module about marketing. Not that I'm teaching marketing, but I'm saying you have got to have nailed your route to market and how you bring customers into your business, because without that you have no control over your future. Finance is the mirror. It's an enormous mirror that reflects back to the business everything that is going on in the operation. And that's what finance is. It's a tool to tell you, this is how things are. This is where I'm going. This is where I've been. These are my most important metrics. But if you get your numbers done properly, they're not dry numbers on a page. They are a mirror that tell a story. And that's when finance is exciting, because you can look at that, you can read the story and say, I can see what's going right, I can see what's going wrong, and I can see what I need to change quickly. So it's not the most important thing, but it is the mirror, and it's a key part of it, isn't it? You can't not have it. You can't just be great at bringing work in and delivering it, because you might be making rubbish margin, over-delivering, over-servicing, making no gross margin, Your pipeline, your conversion might be rubbish. You've got to know those figures, and that's why you need the non-financials integrated with your financials, presented back as a story that is easy for you to understand. And that's
I mean,
different. Like, oh, here's your P&L.
I'm just thinking of a couple of just shockers that I've heard recently. You know, one was someone saying, our I've looked at our numbers, and I can see it cost us £100,000 a month to run the agency, but we're only billing 120, and it's like, oh, jeepers creepers. That 100,000 is for what? Oh, it's just for the wage bill, and it's like, okay, fine. And I think what happens is that in defence of agency owners, they kind of get blinded by the sheer monthly, quarterly, weekly, daily piece. Another recent example. Interestingly, it goes back to your thing about revenue. Is, you know, we're doing 3.5 million, so we're doing really, really well. How many people do you employ? 45. And I just know that at 45 people, you shouldn't be doing 3.5 million. It probably doesn't stack up, but let's talk about it some more. So is it the accounting industry who are at fault for not making people financially numerate? What's going on? So many people, so many bright people who run such great businesses are not financially numerate.
I know. Well, I've spent years breaking out of the mould of an accountant, because we're taught a different language. We aren't taught to, well, I guess in my qualification we are, but it's more of a corporate qualification where, so if you're a traditional chartered accountant, you're not taught to communicate or to turn numbers into story. In my qualification we are, but we're in corporate land where you've got much more financially literate managers that you're working with. In small business, there's this massive translation issue where accountants are not taught, and also accountants, if they're working for someone, they're not a business owners. They don't actually understand the guts of what it means running a business. Whereas I've been running a business for 21 years. I've been brought up in entrepreneurial household. I understand the guts of what it means and what people need to know to not feel fear, and to break it down, and to not be so precious that I can be the only one in the room that understands the numbers. You know, I've only done my job if every person in that management team, because I've got a lot of agency clients, if every person on that management team understands what we're looking at. I want to know billable percentage for your team. I want to know, let's say, you know, revenue per fee earner, the net profit with the EBITDA. But everyone's got to understand it, not just me. It's not a win if only I know what's going on. You know, and so it's my job to find every creative way I can to make sure you can see what I can see, and that I've told you the story in such a way that you get it.
Yeah, I mean, I just love your thing. I love your thing about the accounting industry. I wrote in, I suppose it's called a blog post, you call it now, for one of the big accounting magazines. I had 650 poison pen letters because I said that accountants are shortchanging business owners, and they could add so much value, and they could be that business owners, you know, new best friend, really close, really adding phenomenal value, and having a more satisfactory accounting practice by actually adding great value rather than sitting on their backsides and doing a minimum. And it was everything from, if you've been trained for 7 years, you'd understand, through to charlatan, through to who does he think he is? He's just a fly. But and a lot of it was really, really quite ugly. And I have an accountant that I love because, quite simply, they make me more profitable, and I have a great relationship. But there's so many accountants aren't great, and even just that little sort of pattering of measures that you gave there, agencies often don't get that. If they've got a standard accountant who has a mix of clients, the accountant won't have even bothered to have gone, so what would an agency be measuring? What are the key levers to push and pull to actually make an agency work? Let's just do a little bit of research. So you end up saying to your accountant, as you do to almost any blue chip trying to sell to you, you don't understand business, you don't understand my business, you don't understand my industry, you don't understand me, and you don't understand my ambition. And is it any blinking wonder that I get frustrated with you when you try and sell me something? And that's all the accountant's got to do.
But to give that some balance, in the interest of fairness, when you go, what you're contracting with an accountant is, do my corporation tax return, do my company house accounts, and keep me legal. That is what we are generally buying. So people sometimes get upset because their accountant isn't being very proactive, but people aren't usually paying for that, and that's not what they've usually bought. They haven't bought that, but sometimes they expect it. So you've got to know what you're buying. But equally, most accountants, again, are trained to be, I know how to prepare your corporation tax return. I know all the disclosure notes. I know how to make it in the right format. They're not, they are not the creative, commercial, forward-looking people, because that isn't their training. So I think there's just an interest of fairness and balance there. But it's
Well,
about,
I can get 95% of that from using a VA in Bangalore and getting them to use Zero. So if they're going to take that route, they're just on a commoditized hiding to nothing.
Oh, totally. And I'm just saying that is just where most accountants are. Yeah. And I've been in business 21 years, and there are 2 accountants that I recommend. The rest, the horror stories and the damage that I've seen accountants do to companies through, actually just very, very poor quality work as well, which is another reason why, as the owner, you have got to be on top of it, because, newsflash, bookkeepers and accountants make mistakes. And there are some extremely poor quality ones out there. And you can't afford to assume they know what they're doing. You have to understand enough to sense check what you're getting.
Yeah,
critical. I've seen so many businesses literally fail and go under because of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, because my PA of 16 years has stopped working with me, and she was also doing the bookkeeping here, and now we've kind of moved around to a different system. And I'm so aware now that unless we have this really rigid system, which Trish was managing all of beautifully because she was in the same office as me, but now, here's a contract, here's a statement of work, here's a purchase order, this is the amount of work we've done this month, the invoice can go out, this is what has to happen. And unless that system is in place, the bookkeeper only knows what you tell them and what you show them. And if you don't tell the bookkeeper that one of your suppliers is racking up a big bill and going to want it all paid in 6 months' time, they're not going to know. So you have to, I think as owners, we are equally responsible to make sure that our bookkeeping team can actually work with the data that we've got, and we're the grown up in the situation, so we have to set up the business around us to actually make us do that. Okay, so I think we've done enough whinging about accountants. I think that just gets a bit boring if we're not careful, or I think people need to recognise. The thing for me is about how does one go from, so the typical thing, most agencies go kitchen table, dining room table, garage, small industrial unit, larger industrial unit, and most agencies, like most small businesses, is a technician trained in another agency, tap, get someone to help them out, get 2 people to help them out, or they've got 5 people helping them out. Oh, I'm going to change my title to managing director or CEO. Oh, I can't deal with all this. I'm going to get a bookkeeper to help out on some of the books. Oh, I can't do all the selling. I'm now 8 or 9 people, and it's they're having to learn to do everything. And so head of operations, head of marketing, head of finance, head of sales, process and systems, people and culture, brand. So how do you think they should keep finance alive? Because the finance thing, surely, after what we've just said, is the easiest thing to let drop, because it's like difficult and complicated to understand what it is. It's like a book of potions that some mad scientists have created. So I'll wait until the end of the year and see what the accountant says. So how do we create a community of agency owners that put finance squarely at the centre of their agencies?
For me, it really does start with the why you're doing it, because unless it is important to you, if you're going to do it just because you've been told you've got to, you're unlikely to pick it up. You know, oh, the accounts have come through on email. Oh yeah, I'll look at those sometime. Oh, I'll just have a scan through and see what the turnover was. If you don't care about it, and if you do not care if you're making money or not, and if you don't care that you're going to get enough into your pension, and you don't care that you're making an agency that you could sell one day, and the amount of money you want in the future, you've got to care enough to want to look at your numbers. And there were clients, I've walked away with lots of clients in the past who just weren't interested. They really didn't care. Like, well, if you don't care, why is anybody else going? So it starts with that, and it starts with knowing what they want. So if they're going like, I know I want a 10 million exit, then you've got to start working towards that. If you I just want a nice lifestyle and get enough in the pension, well, that's great, but you need to know what that looks like. And then and it's never too early in that journey to get a bloody good bookkeeper and a bloody good accountant. Do not go for the cheapest possible way you can get your annual accounts filed, because it will cost you later. So, I would say, place a great amount of value. If you care about making some money and securing your future, care enough to invest in a good bookkeeper. But then also care enough to invest some of your time to learn to read the numbers. And to say, I want to see them looking like, I don't want to see the standard profit and loss pulled off of zero. I need to see it where I've got my team. I've been reviewing a set of accounts today for a potential acquisition. Salaries are all lumped into overheads in one big block. Well, I want to see your fee earners in gross margin. I want to know what the gross margin is. I want to see the billable percentage.
We've just had exactly the same conversation here.
Well, I don't want to see a lump of 300 or 400 grand of salaries in overheads. It's not overhead, it's a cost of sale. I need to know what your fee income is. I don't want to see one lump sum figure for income, which includes recharges and media recharge. You've got to care enough to split it out and see the story that your figures are
telling. The thing is, you can say that with your experience, and I've got an MBA from what was the UK's #1 business school, and still, spoiler alert, sometimes I struggle to be able to tell the whole picture when I'm looking at a set of accounts, because it's directors' loans and accruals, and that's next year, but does that really? So I'm not all over it, and I think I'm quite bright at business, and so how does the ordinary Joe agency owner? How are we expecting them to know, because they don't know what they don't know? So how do they know what it is that they should be looking for?
The answer I'm going to give you is not, I don't mean it to sound like a plug, but the only way I can explain it to you is to tell you what I've done, because this has been my mission for so long, and it's something I care so deeply, and it keeps me awake at night. And I needed to find a way. How can I show business owners what they should know? Because my bigger mission is to transform the survival rate of companies in the UK by uplifting this performance level, because I know if more businesses understood, less businesses would fail. That is a fact. So I created this online training academy, because I need to find a way to for very little money, to be able to have business owners say, I can go and learn how to read this stuff. Because you go on a finance for non-financial manager training course, they're run by accountants in accountants' language, and you don't come away any the wiser. I know, I've been on loads of them. So that's where I created what I created. Say, right, there isn't really any way to do it, in my opinion, very easily. We will teach you. You can learn everything online, how to read it, how to do it, what it should look like, what to ask your accountant for, what a good accountant looks like, what your flash report should look like, how to do a budget. Because you're right, it is. We've been trying to train people one-to-one for years, and we've done it successfully, but you can only work with so many people one-to-one. And this is why I now have my YouTube channel and my blogging and my videos and my masterclasses every week. I'm trying to provide that way for people to go, this feels like a very difficult subject. Let me break it down for you and make it really simple. So that, and my idea of success is someone goes, oh, is that all a balance sheet is? Oh, I get it now. I haven't understood it. My accountant's been telling me for 10 years and I've never understood a word. But I get that. Is that all it is? Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, finance is adding up and it's taking away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you break that down and people go like, now I can take the fear filter off. I get what you're telling me.
Yeah, and I'm going through a really interesting conversation at the moment. I'm working with an agency where the FD has said that he doesn't want to bother the new MD with the financial information because it's very, very complicated.
Not his call to make.
Well, that the first thing is, who do you report to? And the second thing is, what are the responsibilities of the MD in terms of what he needs to know? And the FD's argument was that it was very, very complicated, and it was it's a it's a business that has 100 clients. It can't be that complicated. And yes, some people owe them money, and some people don't owe them money, and some people pay in advance and don't. But even on a spreadsheet with 100 lines, you'd still get the thing fairly well nailed. And and I guess that's done because partly to protect and defend, and partly because there may actually be some complexity which is difficult to explain or justify quickly to a non-financial person. But I think there's still an anxiety, and I think we all get it as business owners. You kind of look at the numbers, you finally nailed it, and then boom, out of the blue, a bill for 40,000 quid for a supplier that you'd forgotten about lands. And you learn never going to do that again, or you think it's all going absolutely fantastic, and then you need £25,000 for a piece of kit, which is cool, and you turn around and you go and take the £25,000 out, and actually you can't take the £25,000 out because it may or may not be cash, and so on and so forth. So I've got no problem about people being more financially numerate. In fact, every time I work with the board, I always say, okay, now we're working as a board, everyone in this room needs to understand what the numbers mean. And they all go, oh, yeah. And you go, so does everyone understand the numbers? And they all kind of stare at points on the wall or on the ceiling. And they say, okay, so hands up those of you who could confidently talk me through the P&L and balance sheet for the business. Well, someone else can go first. And they're making decisions for the business, whether they have 10 staff or 30 staff or 80 staff or 150 staff. One, they're making decisions on rubbish information because they don't know what they want, so they're willing to wait till the end of the quarter to get some information which is, as you quite rightly pointed out, not presented in a way that has any kind of great meaning to it. And secondly, they're making information without understanding whether 10% is good or bad, and whether 10,000 is good or bad. Not just in terms of, we could talk about benchmarks another day. Not just in terms of benchmarks, but in terms of based on what we did last year and what we're doing now and what we should be doing. And then chuck on COVID, and then people are willing to say, well, it's COVID, so it's really difficult to say anything about our accounts. So I'm going to ask you again, how do people take control so that they can Friday night, walk out of the office and say, okay, right, so I now know where we are on this map?
Okay, what can you do? You can start by, if you're in a position now and you're thinking, I'm listening to this and I don't really have a grasp of my numbers, first thing, talk to your accountant. What you give me doesn't mean anything to me. I do not understand it. I need you to explain it in real noddy language so that I understand what you understand. And one thing I would mention here is work at agencies, the amount of times I see work in progress nowhere in the accounts. And if you're not measuring, if you are delivering projects and you're not just billing every month for the work you've done, you have got to measure your work in progress, because without it, your profit is completely meaningless. I come across £1-2 million agencies all the time who just don't use WIP. It's like, then you don't know your profitability. You just don't. So it just comes from saying, right, do you know what? I don't understand these numbers. They don't make any sense to me. I don't know what I'm looking at. I haven't got forecast. You've got to have a budget. If you haven't got a budget, you are just running blind. But just say, this isn't, and if the accountant can't bridge that gap, find another one. It comes at you, and on that subject, how do you go home on Friday? Weekly flash reporting is a very simple thing you can put in place without having to go down all the accounting side, but a weekly flash report that tells you everything I need to know on Monday morning of week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, which means I already know what my profit's going to be this month.
Okay, slow down. So you just dropped in weekly flash
Yeah.
report. It feels a bit like a information bomb. So yeah, in agencies we have lots of dashboards and scorecards and lots of measures, and some of them are highly relevant, and some of them just seem to be done because Google say we ought to do them, or if we show them to the client, it's got a big number on it. The client will think we're doing well. Not all numbers necessarily have a meaning, and there's lots of them. So what do you mean by a weekly flash report? What would one look like?
So a weekly flash report is where you are. So the idea of the weekly flash is you get your monthly management accounts, maybe week 2, week 3, the next month. The idea of weekly flash is that we already know where we're heading. We're not going to get a shock at the end of the month, and B, we have a chance to change the outcome of the month while we're in it. So rather than going like, oh, sales were 30 grand down on budget, oh, I wonder why, we should know that in week 1. In fact, we should know that the month before, because we're looking at pipeline, we're looking at what's landed, we know what we're going to deliver. So so it's about measuring them, but the very few most important key numbers that are quick to prepare and easy to understand. So in agencies, my clients will measure the revenue forecast for the month based on what we know we've got on delivery, plus expected pipeline due to land and be delivered. We will measure billable percentage of the delivery team. We'll measure pipeline. We'll measure orders landed in the week. We'll measure debtors over 60 days. We don't measure cash in bank because my clients don't need to, because they've got that one nailed. But we're measuring like the things like, what have we got a chance to change? So we'll give you an example. Yesterday, flash report came in from one of my agency clients. I'm going like, okay, so we're looking like we're going to miss sales target, and you've got 70 grand of income in pipeline that you're forecasting to deliver this month. Really? You're going to land it and deliver it this month. Can we just take a sense check on that? Because I already know that I need to be thinking about sales not hitting target this month. And I want to know what pipeline is looking like and delivery forecast for next month, the month after, and the month after. Because I want to know now, what does my May, June, July look like? Have we got? Because if you're answering those big questions, you've got a chance. Like, right, do you know what, guys? We need to hit the phones. We need to convert some of that pipeline. Or we've got a billable issue. The billable percentage dropping. Why did it drop this week? What's happening to Flossie in the corner? Why is she not billing as much? We've got a chance to get those things quickly.
Flossie works for you as well. Okay, that's good. So those measures are, can I just be clear about it? Those measures are, if I understand correctly, they are performance and predictive.
Yes.
So by predictive, I mean, are we adding 10 new names to LinkedIn every day? Are we writing 3 proposals a week? Are we having 10 new customer conversations a week? So it's predictive, because we know if we do 10 conversations, that'll be 5 meetings. 5 meetings will be 3 proposals. 3 proposals will be 2 pieces of work at an average of £15,000. So
exactly.
Okay, so
we know if we don't do that 1 week, we know we're going to have a problem as a consequence.
Right, so predictive and performance, cool. And the other question for me is quantitative, in other words, numbers, and qualitative.
Yeah.
So by qualitative, it might be hot leads, in other words, leads that are really good, or really high team morale, or awesome looking proposals. So it doesn't have to be Larry Logic and his Excel spreadsheet just measuring everything.
It's right. And with the flash reports, I give my clients always have a narrative at the top saying like what's on fire this week, what's hot this week, what we're worried about, and then that's shared with the management team, by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock Monday morning. Like, do you know what, guys? Pipeline's dropping. That big lead dropped out. We've got to fill that. But we know it today, rather than spotting in 2 months' time that revenue's dropped.
And I can hear all the owners watching, going, yeah, that's all right for the 50-person agencies, but me, I'm only okay. So how small do you think you can be to do this weekly flash report?
Do you know what? I do one for me. I've got a freelance team. I don't think you're ever too small to care enough about your numbers that you want to know what revenue you're going to do this month and next month. Why wouldn't you? It may be a much smaller version, but just check in every week. Right, what have I got on the books for this month? Right, what's in pipeline? What did I send any proposals out last week, or was I too busy on delivery to do any marketing? Classic in a small business. Busy delivering. Oh, I forgot to do any marketing. Oh, I've got to build the pipeline up again from scratch now, and you get that ridiculous cycle. And it's about, the idea is it's got to be quick to prepare. So just some simple numbers. So the smaller one might just be a few, 3 or 4 key numbers that tell me, like, do you know what? I'm okay. I've got enough in pipeline for April, May, June. Looking good. I'm writing proposals. It's fine. Rather than you suddenly look up and go, oh, I haven't got any income this month. So it's about it's proportionate to the business.
So it's about setting off early. So it's kind of this: start with the end in mind. Where do you want 3 years, 2 years, 1 year? Okay, if that's where I want to be in 1 year's time, what am I having to do each quarter? If that's what I'm having to do each quarter, what am I having to do each month? Okay, if that's what I'm having to do every each month, roughly, we don't need to be too specific about it, but roughly, what should we be doing per week? Because it kind of, we get good and bad weeks. Funnily enough, I was doing, I guess, my equivalent of a weekly flash, and not only weekly but monthly. It's lumpy, it's not, we've got 5 new really big contracts all starting next week. So therefore, last month didn't look so great, but this month looks ridiculously great. But it averages out when you kind of stretch the thing and look at quarters and half years and 1 years.
Which is what I said about the finances being the mirror. It's about making sure your numbers have got a context to them, so you're not just, because what most people get is like, oh, here is your 1 month P&L off of Xero or QuickBooks. Like, well, without context and comparison, it means absolutely nothing. It's got to have the context of the year wrapped around it. What have you done the previous months? What are you forecasting the rest of year? And the figure I care the most about is, what is your full year forecast net profit? It's the most important number. I don't care what your turnover is going to be. You could be doing 2 million quid with a 20k net margin.
Yeah.
Turnover means nothing.
Yeah.
What percentage net are you delivering from that?
I love it. I really like it. So you're just, I'm just slightly aware of time. So your argument is that it's understanding the story is relatively easy. It's just been for whatever reason, people have become really nervous to actually lean into the numbers and figure them out. Your argument is that it's relatively straightforward to get a decent sense of what the numbers do, but you need to want to lean in.
Yes.
And then if you do lean in, there are relatively simple is the right word, not simplistic, but simple tools that'll give you kind of the information you want in order to not just look back, but in order to start making tougher decisions about your business.
Yeah, and it's also building some key principles in. So I can share with you some takeaways here.
Right.
One of the first things I teach my clients is that you absolutely categorically must put your taxes away in a separate bank account that you never touch. VAT, corporation tax, personal tax, not your money. Put it away. You will never have a shock tax bill again. Secondly, build up your buffer cash, 3 to 6 months operating overhead. You put that in the bank, you'll never. So when my clients hit COVID, nobody had to panic. Our taxes are away, our buffer cash is away. And then once you've got your buffer cash, you build investment cash. So when you want to spend that 25 grand, like you said earlier, oh, I can. I've got some segregated money set aside there for investment. There's some golden rules there where you build up, and then once you get connected with that gets exciting. I think with finance, you've got to get there's got to be some skin in the game, and there's got to be some emotion, as in like, do you know what, I am invested in this. I want to put 50 grand in my pension this year. I want a really good holiday. I want to so my business needs to deliver me a return. We've got to get that connection. It's quite a gut, heart-based connection to like, this is my business, my future. I need to understand it. I can't keep abdicating it. And if you genuinely don't care, then that's fine. But if you care about your future, take the effort to learn this stuff.
But that's the bit, isn't it? Because everyone says, "Oh, I care. It's my business. I'm awake all night. Identity. I work blah blah hours per day. Sorry, I haven't got time for the kids because I'm talking to clients." Yada 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 yada. But actually, very few people actually. It's kind of what you're saying. If they really do care about this, then they need to make that connection. You don't get rewarded for hard work. There are no there are no medals for hard work, but there are medals for cute work. And I remember a guy who he ran a fairly small agency, but he took 200,000 quid a year out of it. Everyone laughed at him and said, you know, who are you? You've only got a 10-person agency. You're nothing. We're all growing our businesses. And how much do you work a week in any case? And he said, I do between sort of 4 and 6 hours a week. And the room just went silent because he was running a hugely profitable agency, and he was literally rocking up at 10 o'clock on Monday, having lunch with them, leaving at 2 o'clock, and taking home 200k. And you don't, I know it's tough when you're in the middle of the grind of building it, but you don't have to be grinding like that to be making money. And it's just about, I guess in some sense, it feels like he'd been on one of your programs and kind of went, aha, I've got it. I now know what I need to do to get what I want out of this money machine.
I think, Rob, there's a really good point there, especially in the agent, obviously in every industry, but in the agency landscape particularly. There's this obsession with, oh, I've got a 2 million agency, I've got a 10 million agency. It's all about this headline, and people get suckered into chasing a dream they may not even want. If actually they wanted a business to be financially secure and spend more time with the kids, but they get pulled into this rat race of, oh my God, I've got to grow my turnover and my staff numbers. The client you talk about, I make 200k a year. I can secure my future on that. Why would I want? And I've seen people who they rush off on this turnover dash, and it destroys the quality of their life because they didn't know what they were aiming for.
Yeah.
If you know you need a million or two, then set your number out and go to get it.
And the other thing is, I got a very, very clear memory of running a workshop where I had a guy on my left with 15 people, and on my very, very right, a guy with an agency with 200 people. And the guy with 15 said, oh, I want to be over there with them. And I said, you don't. Look at them. They may have big BMWs and Mercedes-Benz, but look at the bags under their eyes. Look at the grey hair for their age.
And the
He said, what do you mean? He said, what do you mean? So I said, 15 people, I'm going to make some random number guesses for you. 15 people, 1.5 million turnover, 20% net profit, which is 300k. Times 4, you're worth 1.2 million if you sell it. Okay, that's fine. Him over there, yeah, look at him, 200 people. Yeah, 200 people, 20 million, 10% net profit. That's 2 million times, let's say 8, which is 16 million. But he sold 90% of the business, so he's only got 10% of the business in his name. So he's worth 1.6. For the extra 10 years and all that grey hair and what it feels like to employ 200 people and what it feels like to have people sitting on your board who you don't like and what it feels like to have people that you owe millions of pounds to for the rest of your life and you may not get out and they may be able to sack you. And this guy, 15 person suddenly went, oh, okay, this is okay. I don't have to go any further, do I? Because that road doesn't look like a lot of fun. Well, it's not a lot of fun if that's not what you're good at. I mean, I know people who I met in their kitchen who said in 5 years' time we're going to run a £25 million agency, and they've done it and they've retired and but that's 1 in 100,000, and everyone thinks they are that one.
Yeah, it comes down to you've got to know what you're doing it for. You've got to get reconnected with why did I do this in the first place? Do I really need 10 million to exit, or will 1 be okay? What do I need for the life I want? Get connected with that number. We teach our clients in our program, find your X number. What is the figure you need for the rest of your life? And how do we get your business to give it to you? Because and clients often say, I realise I've been running 1 million miles an hour in the wrong direction. And what do? You get 1 million miles away from where you want to be.
And also, I think there's a thing about it doesn't have to be finite business. People do talk a lot about the exit, but there's no reason why you shouldn't put in a managing director, rock up to the management meeting once a month for an afternoon, take 50k out of the business for the next 15 years. And oh look, 15 times 50, well, that's a nice number for doing what? An afternoon a month.
Yeah.
So there are a number of ways of getting the money out of the business. Listen, we're running out of time. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I guess I'd like to finish by asking you two questions. You can answer them whichever way you want. The first one is and I ask everyone these. The first question is, what next for Serena? What's the next project? What's the next thing ahead of you that you're eager and passionate about? And the other thing is some one-liners or the things that you're heard saying all the time, or the little nuggets that you'd like to share. So go whichever way you want to go, Serena.
The first one is, what we're doing next is the thing we're doing now is we've built our digital training platform. And now I'm in the throes of learning the markets again in the same line. I've in the past abdicated marketing. I've now realised I have to learn it. So I'm training with the best people I found in the world at marketing membership sites. So that is my big mission right now, of learning that and really getting it out to market. And that is hugely consuming. And I'm having to learn a whole ton of new skills I never thought as an accountant I'd need. And our mission really is just to grow that to, we want thousands of people where we are. It's not an exaggeration to say transform people's lives, because they now know what they want and they know how to get it from their business and they're excited about it. In terms of my nuggets, the things I talk about are what we've said really. You need to know what you're in it for, and it's about recognising that your business is your vehicle to financial freedom, but you've got to take responsibility for that. You have to stop abdicating to the accountants, to the bookkeepers, and if you take nothing else in this podcast, taxes are away in a separate bank account, 3 to 6 months buffer cash separate bank account. Do those two things. And if you're an agency, put your work in progress in. Your profits mean nothing if you're not measuring your WIP properly.
Brilliant.
There's basic things there that can be completely transformative.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely love it, Serena. Serena, thank you so much for being a great guest. Your contacts and URLs and all that will be at the bottom. People, please do follow up Serena Humphrey. Serena, thank you for being a really great guest. I've really enjoyed speaking with you.
It's been really fun. Thanks very much.